One of the most difficult things about being an Illinois landlord is when your tenant stops paying rent and you're forced to start the eviction process. The first questions you're going to ask are, number one, how much is it going to cost? And number two, how long is it going to take? You might have mortgage payments to make and bills to pay, and now you need to determine how long this rental is going to be costing you money. It's not pleasant and it's going to cost you money. But if the process is not followed correctly, it can cost you a whole lot more. This video aims to shed light on how long the eviction process typically takes and the costs associated with it. I'm Scott Richmond, and I'm an Illinois real estate lawyer at Ariano Ritt. And since 1981, we've been helping landlords in the Chicagoland area with their tenant problems. And when it comes to tenant and landlord relationships, we've seen it all. The eviction process in Illinois is initiated when a landlord believes that they have just cause to remove a tenant from their property. Reasons for this include non-payment of rent, violation of lease terms, or damage to property. But the number one question probably in your mind is, how long will this take? And then the number two question is, what is it going to cost me? Well, we're first going to discuss some of the general timelines, although every situation is different. Now, before filing an official eviction lawsuit in court, landlords are required to provide tenants with written notice. The duration of this notice varies based on the reason for eviction. For example, typically, a landlord has to serve a tenant with a 5-day notice for non-payment of rent. The landlord has to serve a tenant with a 10-day notice for other lease violations, such as illegally having pets. And in Illinois, there are specific Supreme Court approved forms to use for the various notices that must be served. These notices need to be personally served or served by certified mail with a proof of receipt. The notices cannot be taped to the door, they cannot be slid under the door, and they can't be put in the mailbox. However, one caveat is that in Cook County and Chicago, they have different special landlord-tenant ordinances with different requirements. So what I'm saying here today does not necessarily apply to Cook County and Chicago evictions. Once the proper notice has been served on the tenant and they fail to remedy the violation of the lease, either by full payment of the rent or by solving the lease violation, such as removing an illegal pet, the landlord has a right to file for eviction. Once the eviction lawsuit is filed, the tenant needs to be served with a summons and a complaint, and an initial court date is set, usually anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks later. At the initial court date, the tenant will be given time to file an appearance, and eventually a trial date will be set. Now, in some counties, there is what's called eviction mediation, where during the interim period that the judge gives the parties to resolve the matter, they participate on Zoom in a mediation session with an independent mediator. If they reach an agreement, the case is settled. If they don't, then on the next court date, the judge will set a trial date. If the landlord and tenant go to a trial, the judge will make a decision. If the judge makes the decision in favor of the landlord, the court will issue an order of eviction requiring the tenant to move out by a certain date, and may award the landlord judgment for the money that is owed if it's a non-payment of rent issue. In total, assuming that there's no complications such as appeals or postponed hearings which occur, which could significantly extend the timelines, the entire eviction process in Northern Illinois could take anywhere from 5 weeks up to 3 to 4 months. Now, you have an idea of now how long it takes for the eviction process, and you can see, even though it's called an expedited hearing, it still takes time to get through. Then there's the issue of costs. Depending on which county you're filing in, the court costs typically run about $600. In addition, if you hire an attorney to handle your eviction, the prices vary, but starting points average around $1,000 for the attorney's fees. And then finally, if you get a judgment of eviction and have to place it with the sheriff to actually complete and effectuate the eviction, the sheriff typically charges somewhere in the range of $350. So you can see in total, a landlord is going to spend close to $2,000 to get through the eviction process. Now, it is imperative that these costs are taken into consideration when contemplating initiating an eviction proceeding, because they can accumulate rapidly, especially if causing further delays increases the fees, like additional attorney's fees or court appearances. If you find yourself in this situation, schedule a time to meet with our team to review your situation and get all of your options. There's no cost to meet with us, and we will tell you up front all of your options.